Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about Carhartt and patient education in rural areas. I'm not sure I can answer all of the question about patient education, but I can explain why this occurs. And I know there's enough medical people that watch this channel that maybe y'all will be able to do something with the information, or y'all can provide an answer in the comments to the question. But before we get into that, I have to explain the Carhartt thing. If you don't know, Carhartt is a clothing company that makes clothing primarily for me. I'm their target demographic. News came out that they have a vaccine policy. And a whole bunch of people who like to wear their clothing because they like to appear as though they work way out in the boonies, they got really mad about it. And then you have a whole bunch of people who are actually out in the boonies wearing their clothing and wearing masks and all of this stuff showing support. Normal Twitter antics. But it brought up a question. Bo, I worked in an Atlanta hospital and burned out due to the pandemic and moved to a small town clinic in Georgia. Your tweet about Carhartt got me thinking about something I've noticed since coming here. In Atlanta, the people in the city were mostly vaccinated and those just outside weren't. Here in the small town, those in town aren't vaccinated and those out in the country are. A big part of my job is patient education. Can you explain why this happens and give any tips on how I can use it to further educate patients? Okay. All of this, I don't know that there's any studies on this, but your anecdotal observations, they match my world. They match everything that I see as well. The strongest predictor of your vaccination status is your political affiliation. Democrats are more likely to be vaccinated than Republicans. So in Atlanta, it makes sense. The people in the city are more likely to be Democrats, therefore they're more likely to be vaccinated than those on the edge who are probably more Republican leaning. So the vaccination difference it's there. It's going to be obvious. When you get out into rural areas, they're all red, right? Like 30% of the town is affiliated with the Democratic Party. So the overwhelming majority of people are Republican, meaning they're less likely to be vaccinated in town. And then when you get outside of town, this weird anomaly happens where you have people with like giant Trump banners on their truck who are vaccinated. Okay, so while I don't know how this will help, I can explain that. That green bag right there. The green bag in the corner, that's a trauma kit. That's basically your small town clinic in that bag. There's one there. There is one in my truck, and there is one in the house. Because if you get far enough outside of town, I don't know what the mile marker is, but there comes a point where you realize medical help is pretty far away. So you start relying on your own abilities. If I have a piece of rebar go through my chest, if the people there with me at the time cannot stabilize me, I won't make it. Paramedics will not get there in time, period. A small clinic, probably much like the one you work at, is probably 20 minutes away at 70, 80 miles an hour. A real hospital, like that could handle something like that, hour and a half. So once you get outside and you get into the real rural areas, people tend to rely on themselves for medical stuff. And they tend to have their own bags, their own equipment. And they tend to take preventative stuff a little bit more seriously. Because if somebody has respiratory distress, they may not make it to some place that can actually help them. That's why it occurs. That's that's the reason, is once you get far enough away from big medical infrastructure, people rely on themselves. They take more preventative measures. So, they're more likely to get the vaccine regardless of political affiliation. I mean, I actually think I'm the only person around me that doesn't own an AED. It's pretty common if you're that far out. So that's why. Now, how you can use that to convince people to get vaccinated, I don't know. Maybe play up into the fact that many people, especially in the suburbs, they want to be seen as super rural. And maybe lean into that. Maybe appeal to that, I don't know, survivalist-ish stereotype, I feel for you. You're fighting an uphill battle. I'm sure you thought it would be easier coming out of Atlanta and moving to a smaller area. But yeah, it's going to be hard. And also keep in mind, when you get into the smaller towns, people are pretty set in their ways. It's going to take a lot of education to get them to shift. I think your best route might be talking to their mom. I know you're not allowed to do that, but maybe find an unofficial method of getting the message to them. If you know somebody that's really at high risk, and maybe there's a family member who you can get them to allow you to speak to that might be able to sway them, because stubborn doesn't really cover it, does it? Again, don't know that I actually have an answer, but it's something that I noticed, but I didn't know that was something that was common everywhere. If your anecdotal observations match that, it probably is true in a lot of ways, and if it's something that can be used to get people vaccinated, I'm all for it. I don't really know how to use that to increase patient education, though. Hopefully somebody in the comments will. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.